Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined again by Dr. Teresa Fuller, our integrative holistic pediatrician. We call her Dr. T, and she also has her own business called A Healthy Tomorrow. Welcome back today. How are you?
I'm great, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. How's everything down in Baltimore?
Pretty good. The weather's good today, and the rain has moved out of the way, so it's good.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited to have you here. I mean, she's not only a doctor, she's an author, she's a coach, she does a lot. So you're going to have to do your own introduction because this is very difficult in a good way.
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, so I'm a holistic pediatrician and therefore holistic integrative. And basically, what that means is that I approach pediatric health from a standpoint of integrating all of what we know about traditional medicine with holistic holistic and lifestyle interventions. And I feel like, often when I say that, sometimes people think that is very different than general pediatrics. But one thing that I do want to emphasize is that as pediatricians, generally, we always want to incorporate a lot of important lifestyle factors into what we teach anyway. But with the holistic side, I do have more of a focus on learning about the nutritional interactions, the lifestyle, like health, like exercise and sleep, and all of those things. Trying to make sure that people know how to incorporate all of that. And so I'm a pediatrician, so I do focus on children, but all of the information that I give, and including in the book that I wrote, is for adults and children because these are general principles. I have an organization called A Healthy Tomorrow. And as we've talked about before, that is an organization that I use to really get out in the community and get the information out there about living in optimal health. And so we have, when we're in the doctor's office and we see patients one on one, we have a pretty limited amount of time to talk about everything that has to be discussed in such a short period of time. And so I use A Healthy Tomorrow to get out there to where people are. People are at work, people are at school, people are in their churches, people are out in community organizations. And so I am happy to come to where they are to take some real time where we can do some workshops and get down into the real practical information of what it takes to live a healthy life, what it takes to reverse chronic disease, what it takes to keep a healthy weight or return to a healthy weight. And so that's what it's all about.
Well, we have to remind people how they contact you. So you can go to drteresafuller.com. That's DrTeresaFuller. And do you want to share a phone number or social media page as well?
Yes, my social media pages are all Dr. Teresa Fuller, Dr. Teresa Fuller. So at Facebook and at LinkedIn and at Instagram. And also, you can contact me by phone if you want to send me a text at 443 280 9094. So that is another way to get in touch with me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now let's continue the conversation. I know you have a jam-packed, exciting show for us today. Let's begin.
Great. So this is at the time of the recording where we're recording this, it is May, and this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this month, I'm really trying to focus social media information and as many people are on mental health awareness. What we absolutely have to talk about it because our numbers are rising of many of the mental health disorders. And fortunately, many people are giving some good information about it. But sadly, the numbers have been rising long before the pandemic. There were rising numbers of anxiety and depression, especially in everybody, in all populations. But particularly concerning in kids. And so, since the pandemic, those numbers started to accelerate as far as the prevalence of many common mental health disorders. The most common ones being anxiety and depression, but there are even a couple of more that are less, less prevalent. Specifically, something like bipolar depression, which is a subset of depression, but kind of treated differently. But all of these disorders are on the rise, and because of that, I do want to make sure people know what to do, what to look for, what is causing some of these increases, and what we can do about them.
Well, let me ask you this because you've been, I mean, in this field as a doctor, let alone holistic pediatrician for so many years, and you're learning people's healthy habits and lifestyle, and you clearly have the knowledge of this, and it's also getting it to your clients, right? To making sure they stick with it. So you're talking to the parents, to the children, right? And ultimately, it's a whole family, making new decisions and better choices, right? So you're working with the whole family as well as the patient too?
Absolutely, Jill. I'm so glad you made that point because it's really hard to have a healthy child in the context of an unhealthy family. That is the child's environment. So we want the whole family to be healthy, like you said. And many times, what we find is that parents might focus on their children's health, whether it's physical or mental health, to the neglect of their own health. And sometimes just thinking that it's separate, that they don't worry so much about what they're doing with their habits, whether it's eating habits, exercise habits, but they want their children out there, getting exercise and eating right. And that can be defeating. That may not that oftentimes doesn't work because kids really need the modeling. They need the interaction. They really need it to be their environment. And, of course, kids need healthy parents. It's very hard. It's a stressor on kids, of course, if their parents are dealing with health challenges. We want everybody to be healthy. So it helps everyone if we really focus on the entire family.
Well, what else in particular did you want to make sure we cover for today? I know we have a lot of time, thank goodness. Do you want to give us some examples of the people you're working with on this type of habit change and lifestyle change?
Yeah, so when we talk about specifically anxiety and depression, again, there are the numbers are, the estimates are, you know, their estimates, but we're thinking approximately 1 in 4, 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 people, that includes adults and children, are dealing with mental health disorders. And anxiety is one of the really prevalent ones. We're finding that kids are there's a lot of anxiety among children now. And there are many thoughts about why that is. There's some controversy over why that is. There's been a, a, a good book just recently released called The Anxious Generation, and I really appreciate that book. I'm in the midst of reading it now by Jonathan Haidt. And he has put a lot of focus on some of the problems with social media, um, the prevalence of social media, and just the degree of which children are on social media or on screens, or to the neglect of other healthy habits. And I think there is a lot of I even though that's a bit controversial for some reason, I actually wholeheartedly agree with it. I think what we are seeing is two things: is that because of a very sedentary lifestyle, or very falsely social media designed lifestyle, children aren't learning some of the skills they may have more naturally learned in the past. That helps with anxiety. For example, we know children naturally become more anxious as they get older. Even as early as about the age of 6 or 7 is when many times children will start to show a lot of fears. They're starting to be anxious about being alone. They may be anxious about different kinds of you know, natural phenomenon because they're worried. Maybe they've had an experience or they heard about an experience of something really dangerous. And so they start to get afraid of thunderstorms, hurricanes, you name it, many different things. That's normal. But one thing that children need to do and used to do more commonly is, a lot of kind of independent play, outdoor play, playing amongst themselves and learning how nature works, learning how to interact with each other, learning how to set up rules, how to respect each other. And when they were, when children are out doing behaviors that are a little risky, but kind of a safe risk. They're out in the woods playing. They're, falling and, tripping, learning the landscape, learning how to interact with each other. That does start to build some resistance or resilience in children against some of the anxiety that they're dealing with. So it's important that when we talk about holistic health, we have to talk about kind of that whole environment of how children are raised. That we got to get back to some of the basics of play, outdoor play, interaction, in person interaction, and those things are so important in preparing kids for some of the anxiety they're going to experience. It doesn't stop them from experiencing anxiety, but what it does do is give them a little more context, and it helps them to have a little more experience so that when they start to encounter some of these things, they have experienced them to some degree in the past. And so I think it's really important that that is part of what we do.
I also at this time just have to remind everyone how we contact you. It's always my interruption, Dr. Teresa Fuller, but we're not going to take a commercial break. We're just going to remind them of the website, the phone number, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Oh, okay. So the website is Dr. Teresa Fuller. That's DrTeresa Fuller FULLER.com. But I'm also Dr. Teresa Fuller on the different media, the different social media platforms such as LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So I can be reached at all of those locations.
And well, also don't forget, guys, the main goal of A Healthy Tomorrow is to build this wellness into now the next generation. And she's from Baltimore, Maryland. And by the way, your services now, not just in Maryland, right? You do virtual work as well, not just in person.
Exactly. So yeah, I do virtual. I'm happy to do virtual workshops, and so these days we got the digital platforms. Let's use them. So I have done some virtual conferences, workshops, that type of thing. Uh, Yeah. So I do, and in fact, I do want to invite if there are um, locations that want more of this information, understanding that we really, if we're going to get this information out, if we're really going to get people healthy, then we've got to invade those other areas of life. So I hope more companies and more schools um, and more churches will want to bring this type of information to their locations for the people that they serve so that they can take some time. It doesn't just benefit the person, it benefits the business because if your personnel is more healthy, I'm really glad to see there is some degree of more corporate wellness programs happening. You do see those increasing in numbers. So corporations are starting to recognize that it is important to bring a healthy message and a healthy environment to the workplace. And so I do hope more businesses will take advantage of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And just for today, I know we're talking more about this holistic, integrative services that you provide, but I also just want to point out, you mentioned there's this the Change One May Challenge. Could you just tell us a little more about this?
Sure. So, Change One Thing is my book. I'm really excited, just re released this year. And This year is well, it was originally released about 10 years ago. The reason I re-released it is because I needed to update it. And one of the updates that I included, the way the book is is set up as a healthy habit every month, which I'll talk about in a minute. And when I originally released it, it was I gave the information, then I gave a section for kids, specific things you can do for kids. In the re-release, I also included some information for people over 50 because our challenges are a little different. And I say our because I am now over 50. I was not over 50 when I wrote the book originally. And as you live, you learn, and learning some of that research of things that you know strategies that you need when you're over 50. So change one thing is a book. It's a program. It's a lifestyle in which you adopt one healthy habit every month. The idea is that it takes about 21 days to establish a habit. It can take longer. Sometimes it can take shorter, but if you operate on that premise of 21 days to establish a habit, then I give you each month 30 days to establish one habit before advancing to the next one. It's composed of 12 individual habits that you're going to develop, and each one of those is to improve your health. And so they're easy to do. Well, they're simple to do, I should say. Change is not always easy, but they're simple to do. And you focus on one habit, you firmly establish it, and then you move on to the next. And so, like I said, so as you brought up, Jill, this is May. Since it is May, we could talk about the May habit. And so the challenge for May in the Change One Thing program is to detoxify your system daily. Oftentimes, we think of detox as a one-time thing or something you do for 3 days or a week, or I'm going to go on a detox. But I really want people to think of detox as a daily process, because we don't want to build up toxins for 3 months and then go on a 3-day detox. We want to every day be conscious of how can I detox my system today. And so that what I focus on in that chapter is are things like, first of all, stop taking in toxins. So we have to be aware of what kinds of things are we doing that are introducing toxins to our system. What's in the foods that we're eating? Are we drinking the wrong kind of water? Are we doing things in our home environment that we can improve on to reduce indoor air pollution? Those types of things. And then the next section is, what are things I can do to detox as well? So I talk about sweating, for example. I talk about because we want to eliminate. So we want to make sure we're drinking good water so we can eliminate through urination. We can sweat. We can do things like getting on a trampoline or a rebounder, which also, in addition to sweating, it just helps to move our um, lymph fluid around. We have blood, but we also have lymph, and as that moves around, it's moving deep toxins out of our system. So there are a lot of things you can do, and that's one of my favorite chapters, actually.
I love it. Let me ask you this because, I feel like we put stuff into our bodies, right? We don't, really know. We're buying stuff at the supermarket. Not everybody eats organically, or what's the word, rawly, right? And, I'm guilty. I have kids. We go to the supermarket and there's the cereals, there's the sugar cookies, there's the chips everywhere, and we're eating all this bad stuff for us, right? And I'm trying to tell my kids, like, no, no sugar, no, no. And it's so hard for little kids. And I feel like you have to start young, but my kids are 7 and 9. They don't want to hear it. How could you give give someone advice to start that change? I bought a watermelon last night, a huge one from Costco. My son started eating it. I was so happy with the spoon, and I packed it for lunch today. My other one won't touch it. How can I change a child that has no healthy eating habits now? What are some of the things you could do? Can you bribe them? Like, hey, you can play a video game if you eat the carrot. Like, how do you do it? Because I'm just worried about my older son, and I'm sure a lot of people are worried about their children who just like the chicken fingers, the French fries, and all the junk.
All the time. This is day in and day out the information, the problem that I hear parents tell me. And it's unfortunately it's not easy, but there are some things that you can do that make it easier. So, like you said, first of all, having the convenience of it. You want to make healthy things convenient and unhealthy things inconvenient. So yeah, when you go to the market, everything is right there. It's all out there, right in front of your child's face, and of course they want it all. But in your house, it's when it's not there, but
Mm-hmm.
other things are there. It's amazing what kids will eat when that's what the option is. I just recently had an experience. I was teaching a class. I teach Sunday school, and the little kids were, coming in. We always give them something to eat, and I had bought some yogurt. And some people may think that's a different question of how healthy you think yogurt is. But I wanted them to have some protein, low sugar, and so I had some yogurt. And one of the parents said, "Who bought all this yogurt? These kids aren't going to eat yogurt. My kids aren't going to eat yogurt." But every single one of them ate the yogurt because that's what was there. They were happy to eat it. We had some fruit. They were happy to eat it. So convenience, making, healthy choices convenient, unhealthy choices inconvenient. It's not there. It's not in their face. And so, even when you don't have to get in an
Yeah.
argument, if they're looking for, mommy, I want chips. Oh man, we don't have any chips today. What can we eat instead? That it makes it, you keep it low stress, and that helps. And there are a lot of other little strategies that you can use, but that's a big one. You can't control other environments, but you can control the environment in your house, which is good.
Got it. Thank you for that. Well, we still have 5 more minutes left in the show. What else, Dr. Teresa, do you want to add? Dr. T, I should say. I know.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about is that as we were talking about mental health, oftentimes we kind of go straight to when we need help for mental health, things like therapy, things like medication, and those are oftentimes, sometimes they are needed, certainly therapy and sometimes medication. But I also want parents to know, what can you do yourself at home that may help with some of these things. And there's a whole field now called nutritional psychiatry, in which more and more psychiatrists are recognizing that there are foods that you can eat that will help, because there are minerals, they're basically nutrients that are helpful for protecting against anxiety. And so that, for example, we know magnesium is really important. And so many people, it's estimated at least 70% of people are deficient in magnesium.
Yeah.
Omega-3 fatty acids also help to protect against anxiety and to treat. And this is, some of these work for both depression and anxiety. B vitamins also very important for nutritional buffering for against anxiety and depression. And so knowing that there are nutritional things that can be done as well, you do want to make sure that, again, back to how your child is eating, making sure that they are eating things that contain these different nutrients. And so for magnesium, we're thinking green leafy vegetables, we're thinking nuts and seeds, um, zinc. I'm sorry, magnesium, and then I said B vitamins. B vitamins are also in your green leafy vegetables, as well as some of your meats. And so, and omega 3s, of course, in fish, but also in nuts and seeds as well. And so, just knowing that these things can be incorporated into your regular diet, not looking for quick fixes, but just some changes that can be made in how we're eating that can also help us with um, help to buffer
Yeah.
against some of the mental health disorders.
Ah, well, and there's so many of them out there, right? And wow, advice as a doctor. I mean, what do you say? How did you want to leave off for everyone today? I mean, this is a big conversation. It always is. I
Yeah.
don't think a half hour, 27 minutes is enough to talk about this issue and how you're helping people and how we can help ourselves with, what we eat and, what we do.
Right. I think what people really want to do is arm themselves with information. These days, the good thing is there are a lot of people out there talking about this. I mean, just off the top of my head, Dr. Daniel Amen is a big proponent of nutritional psychiatry. And I also already mentioned the book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. There are a lot of people out there who are getting this message out. One of one of the psychi- psychologists that I listened to, and I'm sorry, I did not write her name down, and it escaped me that fast. But there are different people who are talking about um, giving really specific information on what to eat to help with children and their mental health. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the name escapes me of a nutritional psychologist whose podcast that I listen to. So if it comes back to me, I will mention that as well. But arm yourself with information. The information is out there, and
Mm-hmm.
once you know what it is, you definitely want to um, put some of it into action. Even if you make just a few simple changes, it will. Remember, we're talking about children. You've got time.
Yeah.
Kids
Yep.
they're growing, they're changing. So don't worry about if you're not going to make it happen in a week or a month, but we're talking about over years. So we have time.
Got it. Well, we have more time to talk next time. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. Could you share how we can contact you?
Absolutely. So you can find
Thank
me
you.
on um, my website is drteresafuller.com, Dr. Teresa Fuller. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Teresa Fuller. You can call me as well. If you are interested in having a workshop scheduled for your location or want to just get more information at 443-280
Hmm.
9094.
Thank you so much. And let's start. You mentioned something in that blog that you wrote, which I'm curious. I want to read it. You said, Dr. Ellen Logan, the brain diet. It was about
Yes, Dr. Alan
detoxifying.
Logan.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up. He's one of my favorites. That's one of the first books I read about
I was reading that.
nutritional.
Well, your notes about it, but oh my gosh, all these, it's about the fiber binds chemicals. Maybe we could just talk about that next time I drop again because I think it's important to hear because I was like, I got goosebumps. I need to start doing this. I think all of us do to help detoxify our
Yeah.
organs, right? Ah,
Yes, absolutely.
all
And
right.
Dr. Nicole Perkins is the name of the psychologist I was
Oh,
mentioning,
got
who
it.
has a lot of great information on feeding your child for mental health.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and looking forward to the next time we get to connect. Okay. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Bye bye. Nice speaking with
Bye
you, Dr.
bye.
T. Dr. Teresa Fuller, Teresa Fuller.com. Just Google her. Don't forget to pick up copies of her books. Go on the website too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.